Forget about trying to retrace your steps to find this exact broadcast later on. Should you attempt to search for it tomorrow, you will discover that the energetic landscape has already altered its course, and the specific version of yourself that required hearing these precise words will have completely dissolved. You are not merely sitting there consuming a digital video right now. Instead, you are standing at a profound, cosmic crossroads. The vast majority of individuals waste their entire existence endlessly pursuing, scrambling, and pleading with the cosmos for some sort of validation or sign. They tragically fail to recognize that the very desperate act of pursuit is the exact mechanism keeping their deepest ambitions perpetually out of their grasp. You have arrived at this precise digital coordinate because that exhausting loop is finally shattering. You have tuned in because your conscious awareness has crossed a critical boundary where the endless hunt is simply no longer bearable. Pause your scrolling immediately. Halt your analytical mind. This occurrence is absolutely devoid of randomness. The quantum fabric of reality does not duplicate profound energetic signals like this one. If your eyes are locked on this screen in this very second, it signifies that your inner vibrational frequency has perfectly synchronized with a specific instant in time, causing infinite probabilities to collapse into this exact, targeted delivery. You did not actively seek out this information through a search bar. Rather, your energy magnetically matched it. And here lies the difficult truth that the masses vehemently refuse to embrace. This specific moment in time will never duplicate itself in this exact geometric arrangement. The reason is simple. Once these fleeting seconds pass, you will have fundamentally transformed into a completely different observer. If these concepts resonate with you on a profound soul level, rather than just intellectually, do not let this vibration slip away. Hit the like button to secure and anchor this energetic alignment. Hit subscribe if you are genuinely prepared to abandon the exhausting role of the pursuer and transform yourself into an irresistible gravitational force. Furthermore, drop a comment below stating your current physical location. Do this not to feed some digital algorithm, but to permanently record your physical coordinates during this massive paradigm shift. Before we proceed even an inch further, you must immediately discard the notion that you are merely watching another generic piece of internet media. Typical media is something you passively absorb. This, conversely, is an energetic tool designed to actively devour and dismantle your deeply ingrained, toxic behavioral loops. The average person operates completely blind to the monumental threshold they cross when they transition from a state of emotional reactivity to a state of pure observation. Yet, you are becoming acutely aware of it at this very instant. Let us address a highly uncomfortable reality. The world you inhabit acts as a reflective surface, not a transparent pane of glass. You have been systematically conditioned to gaze outward into your environment and agonize over why incredible opportunities constantly pass you by. You wonder why monumental success, boundless wealth, or profound human connection always seems to hover just an inch beyond your fingertips. You operate under the illusion that you are observing a universe entirely disconnected from your own being. In truth, you are merely staring directly at the physical manifestation of your own internal feeling of scarcity. Pay close attention to the invisible mechanism you have continually overlooked. The very act of desiring an object or outcome is essentially a loud, universal declaration of its current absence in your life. Whenever you vocalize or think, "I deeply desire prosperity," you are actually broadcasting a powerful, repelling radio wave that screams, "I am currently devoid of prosperity." The quantum field operates with absolute perfect neutrality and terrifying precision. It simply bounces that intense feeling of lack right back into your lap. As a result, it hands you more situations that induce craving. It grants you more reasons to endlessly search. It mandates more exhausting pursuit. You have masterfully evolved into an expert wanderer, yet you have completely suffered amnesia regarding how to simply be a vessel that receives. We refer to this trap as the ultimate paradox of wanting. The heavier the emotional importance you attach to a specific destination, the higher the walls of resistance you construct within the energetic field. You are foolishly attempting to manipulate probability and force outcomes using nothing but brute mental strain. However, the fabric of the universe remains entirely deaf to force. It exclusively bends to the power of pure alignment. When you operate from a frantic space of desperation, your energy vibrates at a chaotic frequency filled with friction. You are practically waging war against the foundational architecture of existence itself. Reflect for a moment on the blessings that have flowed into your reality with zero friction. Recall those magical instances where puzzle pieces seamlessly locked together without a single drop of sweat. During those serendipitous windows, you were utterly devoid of craving. You simply existed in a state of pure flow. You had successfully tapped into an attitude of profound, detached neutrality. This doesn't mean you lacked passion, but rather that your inner tranquility was no longer held hostage by external circumstances. This is the profound, hidden mastery that the world's most elite minds and awakened souls have leveraged for centuries, all while the general population remains imprisoned inside the exhausting treadmill of relentless grinding and empty optimism. Optimistic hope is actually an incredibly treacherous vibration to hold, primarily because the word inherently suggests the lurking possibility of defeat. It traps you in an endless purgatory of anticipation. The quantum architecture does not respond to wishful thinking. It solely obeys unwavering absolute certainty. This dynamic perfectly illustrates Carl Jung's psychological framework regarding the shadow self. Your awake, conscious brain loudly proclaims that you demand victory, yet your submerged, unexamined shadow is paralyzed by the terrifying implications of what that victory entails. It shrinks back from the incoming responsibilities, the inevitable life alterations, or the painful death of who you used to be. Because you have failed to harmonize with this darker, hidden aspect of your psyche, you are secretly dismantling the exact dreams you loudly advocate for. Consequently, you are emitting a severely fractured energetic frequency. One half of your spirit is aggressively charging forward, while the other half is aggressively slamming on the brakes. The universe witnesses this chaotic contradiction and hands you the exact physical equivalent of your internal state, a perpetual deadlock. Society has brainwashed you into assuming that immense repetition equals extreme importance. You falsely believe that if you practice a visualization technique 1,000 times or sacrifice 100 hours to backbreaking labor, the cosmos will eventually pity you and bestow a grand prize. Unfortunately, the field does not sit on a judge's bench. It operates as an emotionless supercomputer. It couldn't care less about your physical exertion. It solely measures the purity of your core essence. The more profound and rare your internal alignment is, the more incredibly dense and powerful your manifestation becomes. A solitary, fleeting instance of crystal clear, detached knowing wields infinitely more creative power than an entire decade of stressed, agonizing toil. This fundamental cosmic law explains exactly why certain individuals effortlessly pull their wildest dreams into reality while barely lifting a finger, whereas others grind their bones to dust only to remain permanently chained to their starting line. It is not luck. This phenomenon is known as the principle of radical detachment. The very moment you cease demanding external validation from your environment, reality is forced to act as a perfectly polished mirror, flawlessly reflecting your own internal self-approval. You must cultivate such a profound apathy toward the mechanics, the specific timing, and the exact methods that your desired outcome is left with absolutely no alternative but to materialize right before your eyes. The vast majority of people are absolutely paralyzed by this concept. Society has conditioned you to believe that if you lay down your weapons, cease your endless worrying, and abandon the frantic chase toward your ambitions, everything will instantly stagnate. You operate under the severe delusion that your chronic anxiety is the gasoline propelling your engine forward. In reality, your anxiety is the emergency brake violently pulled upward. It acts as a deafening static that drowns out the universe's most vital signals. You are so preoccupied with scanning the distant horizon for your next milestone that you are completely blind to the profound energetic alignment unfolding directly beneath your feet in this very second. Take a brutally honest inventory of your current existence. Observe the relentless cycles that refuse to die. The exact same monetary blockages, the identical romantic frictions, the perpetual sensation of running on a treadmill going absolutely nowhere. You must understand that these are not isolated events inflicted upon you by a cruel world. Rather, they are undeniable evidence of the quantum field dutifully bouncing your own unresolved internal programming right back into your face. You are currently functioning as a conscious witness trapped inside a glitching software loop, and the singular method to shatter this cycle is to fundamentally alter the witness. Your goal is to arrive at a psychological state where your detachment from the finish line is so absolute that the finish line is magnetically compelled to hunt you down. This phase of the transformation is where the shift turns ruthless. You must possess the sheer audacity to surrender every single piece of your current identity in order to step into your ultimate potential. You must actively dismantle and lay to rest the iteration of your ego that identifies as a seeker. By definition, a seeker is an entity programmed to eternally wander without ever arriving. Their very existence relies on the act of the search itself. If a seeker were to suddenly obtain their ultimate prize, their core identity would face immediate annihilation. Consequently, your subconscious mind brilliantly sabotages your success to ensure you never actually grasp the prize. You deliberately keep yourself locked in the wilderness because the pursuit feels incredibly safe and deeply familiar. However, the fabric of the universe is finally calling out your bluff. Reality is laying a massive ultimatum at your feet at this exact moment. You can either choose to rot in the endless loop of craving, or you can boldly step into the absolute vacuum of total detachment. This empty void is precisely where limitless potential peaks. It is the primordial blank canvas from which all physical manifestations are violently birthed. When you deliberately enter this serene emptiness, you completely abandon your exhausting campaign to micromanage reality. You suddenly comprehend that control is merely a pathetic illusion engineered by your fragile ego to mask its deepest insecurities. Paradoxically, the exact microsecond you release your death grip on control is the exact microsecond you inherit authentic cosmic authority. You are not a helpless passenger merely riding along in this grand design. You are the master architect dictating the collapse of these infinite probabilities. In every single moment that you direct your mental focus, you are consciously plucking one specific timeline from an endless sea of parallel realities. Should you obsess over the not yet, you permanently cement the not yet into your physical world. If you fixate on the how, you anchor yourself deeply into confusion. Yet, if you choose to bathe in the energetic frequency of the final destination, experiencing it not as a distant fantasy, but as an undeniable present-tense emotion, you successfully hack the tedious rules of standard cause and effect. You literally leap across timelines. This phenomenon encapsulates what it truly means to be selected by the universe. This selection process has absolutely nothing to do with human concepts of merit or morality. It is strictly a matter of vibrational resonance. You have hit a critical juncture in your spiritual evolution, where your outdated survival tactics, the relentless hustle, the agonizing friction, and the ceaseless cerebral chatter have stopped producing any dividends whatsoever. The universe is effectively strangling your old, lower-dimensional frequency in order to forcefully evict you into a much higher plane of existence. This explains why your current environment might feel incredibly volatile and chaotic. It clarifies why you are suddenly experiencing an eerie sense of apathy or profound boredom regarding activities and desires that used to spark immense passion. Your entire nervous system is undergoing a massive metaphysical recalibration. You are actively shedding your ability to tolerate a low-vibration, low-resolution existence. As we plunge deeper down this rabbit hole, you must awaken to the fact that your conscious attention is your sole, true currency. Exactly where you choose to invest this mental capital dictates the precise reality you will inhabit. The majority of humanity squanders their precious currency on absolute trash, on mindless digital distractions, toxic comparisons, and obsessing over the misery of others. Then, they feign absolute shock when they find themselves entirely bankrupt both spiritually and financially. You, however, are finally waking up to the immense purchasing power of your own focused observation. You are starting to recognize that merely revoking your desperate need for a particular result instantaneously dissolves the energetic dam that was blocking its arrival. This represents the doctrine of radical detachment in its most unadulterated state. It is the paramount metaphysical power play. It is the act of looking the cosmos dead in the eye and declaring, "I am already completely intact." Whether the universe bestows this gift upon you or withholds it entirely will not alter your internal peace one iota. Consequently, since reality operates as a perfect mirror, it absorbs that projection of absolute wholeness and has no logical alternative but to shower you with corresponding physical wealth. You are currently transitioning away from a frantic paradigm of doing into a harmonious paradigm of pure being. Within that elevated state, the quantum architecture ceases to merely point out the correct road. It fundamentally transforms into the road itself. Now, we must delve much deeper into the hidden gears and cogs that the average person is far too terrified to approach. The dark underbelly of the quantum fabric and the specific engineering behind timeline navigation. It is vital that you grasp a harsh truth. The energetic matrix does not simply react to the surface-level thoughts bouncing around your skull. Instead, it exclusively bows to the powerful vibrations of your unspoken, deep-seated assumptions. You can eagerly shout 1,000 positive affirmations into the mirror every single morning. But if your foundational identity remains chained to the persona of an individual who is endlessly waiting for their turn, the universe will flawlessly deliver an eternity of waiting rooms. Herein lies the snare where the vast majority become hopelessly entangled, the myth of chronological hustle. Society has aggressively conditioned you to believe that escalating your physical labor and amplifying your suffering are the mandatory tolls required to finally arrive at your promised land. Yet, within the mechanics of the quantum dimension, straining yourself is merely a loud siren, broadcasting massive energetic blockage. The moment you apply intense psychological pressure to force an outcome, you are communicating directly to the universal matrix that your goal is extraordinarily hard to capture. Since you sit in the seat of the conscious observer, reality obediently molds itself to your instructions, instantly manifesting a path riddled with brutal obstacles. You are actively synthesizing the exact roadblocks you are exhausting yourself to conquer. It stands as the supreme irony of existence. The more aggressively you tug at the rope, the more violently the cosmos yanks it in the opposite direction. This dynamic perfectly illustrates a highly unforgiving application of the observer effect. Standard quantum mechanics dictates that the sheer act of witnessing a phenomenon forces a swirling cloud of probability to crash into one solid, physical particle. However, a hidden secondary trap exists here. Should you fixate with too much intensity like a paranoid chef, agonizingly glaring at a pot of water, praying for it to boil, you literally paralyze the energetic wave, freezing it permanently in its current, unmanifested form. You inadvertently trigger a system lockdown. Your suffocating, needy gaze functions as a heavy, energetic anchor, permanently chaining your existence to the exact miserable timeline you are desperately attempting to flee. In order to successfully leap into a superior reality, you must cultivate the sheer audacity to avert your eyes. This is precisely why adopting a stance of radical, fatal apathy remains the only mathematically sound strategy. By shifting your focus entirely, by violently retracting your starved, anxious attention, you instantly thaw the frozen matrix. You grant that infinite wave of potential the liberty to become fluid once more. In essence, you finally step aside, offering the universe the necessary breathing room to reorganize its building blocks without your clumsy, panicked micromanagement. The tragic reality is that a massive segment of the population is absolutely horrified by the profound quiet that descends the moment the chase is abandoned. Terrified by this stillness, they blindly plunge right back into frantic action and agonizing stress, simply to manufacture a fleeting illusion of command. But that desperate need for command is the very prison cell keeping them trapped. Contemplate the geometric structure of your present existence. It is absolutely not a singular, forward-moving highway. It is a sprawling, infinite web of splitting trajectories. In any given fraction of a second, you are planted at an intersection boasting an unlimited number of parallel selves. There absolutely exists an iteration of you who currently possesses unimaginable wealth, one who bathes in ultimate fulfillment, and another who has utterly crumbled into ruin. These are not distant, mythical futures. They are concrete, parallel dimensions vibrating simultaneously in the eternal now. The solitary reason you are bogged down in this specific, mediocre reality is that your conscious bandwidth is permanently dialed into its exact wavelength. You have manually tuned your internal receiver to the broadcast of pure hardship. And here lies the critical code that humanity entirely overlooks. It is literally impossible to switch the station while you are simultaneously screaming at the television screen about how much you despise the current program. As long as your mental real estate is occupied by complaining about your brutal circumstances, weeping over your empty bank accounts, or obsessing over those who mistreat you, you are dramatically amplifying the transmission tower of that exact nightmare timeline. You are casting a relentless second-by-second ballot demanding that this miserable reality remain active. To successfully migrate to a prosperous timeline, you must violently revoke your belief that your current situation is the absolute, unchangeable truth. You are required to forge an armor of extreme mental detachment, a state where you can stare directly at your barren circumstances and calmly declare, "This is nothing but an expired echo. It holds zero authority over me." Do not confuse this with the toxic positivity preached by mainstream gurus. Forced optimism is frequently nothing more than a fragile bandage slapped over a rotting wound of profound terror. If you feel compelled to forcibly inject fake positivity into your mind, it is merely because you are paralyzed by the reality of your current environment. The strategy we are discussing is far more surgical, chilling, and ruthlessly efficient. This is the application of cold, Machiavellian strategy aimed directly at your spiritual operating system. It is the harsh awakening that your cognitive focus is a finite, highly valuable commodity, and squandering it on your own deficiencies is a catastrophic tactical blunder. The instant you sever your emotional reactions to external stimuli, you violently snap the continuous feedback loop. Suddenly, the cosmic mirror is left staring into a blank void, with absolutely zero data to bounce back at you. Inside that beautiful, silent vacuum, you regain total sovereignty to dictate an entirely new trajectory. However, traversing this void mandates a brutal confrontation with your darkest shadow. The legendary psychoanalyst Carl Jung extensively documented those fractured pieces of our psyche that we aggressively bury, silence, and disown. The overwhelming majority of society harbors a deeply repressed phantom of total destitution or a terrifying ghost of permanent isolation. You are so absolutely petrified by these concepts that you have constructed your entire personality as a frantic defense mechanism to simply avoid becoming them. The critical flaw in this approach is that the universal matrix is entirely incapable of processing the concept of not. If your primary daily motivation is "I must not be broke," the quantum fabric only registers the screaming vibration of broke combined with a massive dose of terror. Consequently, you remain securely tied to the exact monster you are sprinting away from. Successfully merging with your shadow requires you to stare into the abyss of your absolute worst-case scenario and cultivate total, icy indifference toward it. The second you can authentically state, "Even if my entire empire burns to ash, my core essence remains entirely untouched," you completely strip the universe of its leverage to terrorize you. With that deeply rooted fear evaporated, all energetic resistance instantly disintegrates. Let us now dissect the grand illusion of time. You operate under the false assumption that you are a physical body trudging forward along a linear timeline. In reality, time is an energetic current flowing directly through your motionless consciousness. You mistakenly believe you must endure a period of waiting before your manifestations materialize. However, The act of waiting is actually an active, low-grade frequency that you are emitting right now in the present moment. If your mind is constantly waiting for massive financial wealth to arrive, you are continuously sending a radio signal to reality, insisting that the fortune belongs securely tucked away in some distant tomorrow. The quantum field perfectly obeys this command by permanently trapping your wealth on the horizon. If you maintain this posture, you will exhaust your entire mortal existence playing the tragic role of the person who is forever on the verge of making it big. You are tasked with violently collapsing this imaginary gap. You must awaken to the startling truth that the triumphant iteration of yourself who already possesses these desires is absolutely not a mythical character waiting for you in the future. That ultimate reality is an actively vibrating, present-tense frequency. The cosmos never delivers what you simply crave. It strictly replicates what you currently embody. Should you wish to experience massive prosperity, you are required to occupy the vibrational signature of abundance right in this exact second. This does not mean foolishly squandering funds you do not possess. Rather, it demands anchoring yourself deeply into the psychological state of absolute sufficiency. The moment you genuinely feel complete, the frantic pursuit dies instantly. And precisely when that pursuit flatlines, the doctrine of radical detachment is activated. The universal matrix registers your profound sense of wholeness and immediately begins rearranging your physical surroundings to mirror that inner sanctuary. It possesses absolutely no alternative. This is not a mystical promise. It is a cold, mechanical guarantee. However, a highly dangerous snare lies hidden here, the intense impatience of your fragile ego. The very second you attempt to adopt this profound apathy, your ego will frantically peek at the cosmic mirror. It will meticulously audit your financial statements or scrutinize your romantic life and arrogantly whisper, "Look, this is a scam. Absolutely nothing is transforming. Welcome to the ultimate metaphysical exam." Reality is directly interrogating you, demanding, is this detachment authentic, or are you merely wearing a mask of apathy as a cheap tactic to extract your desires? Should you throw a tantrum over the absence of instant gratification, you instantly expose your supposed indifference as a complete fraud. You are simply running a con game, attempting to manipulate the fabric of existence. But the quantum field is completely immune to manipulation. It only knows how to reflect. The minute you react emotionally to the delay, you are immediately thrown back into the miserable cycle of pursuit. You have violently crashed back into the frequency of scarcity. In order to successfully cross this perilous threshold, your detachment must become so impenetrable that you literally no longer care whether this universal law even functions. You must find absolute peace within the deafening silence. You must become entirely comfortable floating inside the empty void. This specific juncture is the exact location where the timeline leap occurs. The quantum jump does not take place the moment the prize lands in your lap. It activates the exact microsecond you entirely relinquish the need for that prize. A very distinct, undeniable psychological snap echoes through your consciousness when genuine surrender is achieved. It manifests as the sensation of a crushing boulder being permanently removed from your spine. It is the breathtaking realization that your internal joy is no longer held at gunpoint by external events. Inside that glorious fraction of a second, your vibrational output undergoes a violent, upward mutation. You are instantly teleported from the agonizing timeline of the hunter directly into the effortless timeline of the magnet. Since the architecture of reality functions strictly via energetic resonance, everything that shares that elevated frequency forcefully gravitates into your orbit. Life-altering opportunities, incredibly aligned individuals, and brilliant concepts begin materializing out of thin air. To the untrained, sleeping masses, your life will appear to be a sequence of miraculous luck. To you, it will simply feel like a perfectly logical, organic progression. Yet, this magic solely unfolds because you summoned the terrifying courage to embrace total apathy. Furthermore, You are required to navigate the treacherous waters of the social shadow. The individuals in your immediate circle frequently serve as the heaviest iron anchors tying you down to your expired reality. They are intimately familiar with the version of you who constantly bleeds, battles, and endlessly strives. The moment you begin your transition into radical detachment, their subconscious minds will detect the severe shift in your aura, and they will desperately attempt to drag you back down to their level. They will interrogate you, demanding to know why you have abandoned the grind, or why you suddenly appear so intensely unbothered. Understand that these people are merely physical agents of the Matrix, deployed to stress test your upgraded frequency. Should you bow to their social pressure and regress into your former habits of whining and exhausting labor, you will instantly shatter your newfound alignment. You must develop a massive tolerance for being deeply misunderstood. You must be entirely willing to be labeled as a slacker or severely unmotivated by the sleeping crowds still imprisoned within the toxic hustle culture. Their entire universe is constructed upon agonizing friction. Your new empire is being assembled upon the foundation of effortless flow. It is fundamentally impossible to simultaneously inhabit both of these dimensions. The universe is presently offering you a highly sophisticated ultimatum. You have arrived at the exact coordinate in this transmission where passive knowledge mutates into an aggressive, energetic mandate. You can likely detect the severe friction burning within your brain as it desperately attempts to harmonize these truths with the decades of propaganda you have swallowed regarding hard work. But interrogate yourself honestly. Has this backbreaking labor ever actually yielded the profound, soul-saturating fulfillment you crave? Or has it merely left you perpetually exhausted and endlessly starved for the next scrap? The philosophy of radical detachment does not advocate for rotting on a couch doing absolutely nothing. Rather, it demands that you execute every single action from an internal posture of already being victorious. It means moving your body solely because you are struck by profound inspiration, completely devoid of panic. It dictates that you float harmoniously with the cosmic river instead of violently thrashing against its current. A single step taken while soaked in desperation instantly spawns a dozen new crises that demand your attention. Conversely, a single action executed from a place of pure, chilling indifference effortlessly kicks open a dozen locked doors. As we draw this specific chapter to a close, pay close attention to the physical rebellion occurring inside your own body. Observe that loud, obnoxious voice in your head that is desperately trying to debate these words, hunting frantically for a loophole in the logic. That voice is nothing but your obsolete ego fighting a bloody battle for its own survival. It is acutely aware that the moment you genuinely adopt this paradigm, it will face immediate execution. It will be stripped of all its precious dramas to solve and traumas to wrap its identity around. It will be forced to confront the utterly terrifying reality of wielding absolute, unchecked power. The tragic truth is that the masses are far more terrified of their own limitless potential than they are of their pathetic weakness. True power carries the massive burden of total responsibility and conscious selection. You permanently forfeit your right to play the victim, blame society, point fingers at your childhood, or curse your bad luck. You are forced to swallow the reality that you, and you alone, are the singular architect collapsing the quantum wave. If you are genuinely prepared to resign from your miserable career as a victim of random probability and ascend to the throne as the supreme commander of your destiny, you must welcome the absolute void. You must digest the fact that the cosmos will completely ignore your existence until you permanently stop begging. The magnificent paradox is that the very second you cease your pleading, you will awaken to find that every single treasure you ever lusted after was already standing right behind you, patiently waiting for you to stop sprinting, so it could finally tap you on the shoulder. We are now approaching the ultimate gateway. This is the exact precipice where the data you have just absorbed must either violently fuse with your spiritual DNA or simply evaporate back into the meaningless static of every other piece of content you have ever consumed and forgotten. We now enter the critical phase of stabilization, which is undeniably the most precarious and volatile segment of this entire metaphysical transformation. The vast majority of individuals are perfectly capable of tasting a fleeting moment of absolute detachment. They can comfortably ride this elevated energetic high for a handful of hours, or perhaps even a couple of days. However, the inevitable backlash soon arrives. The obsolete reality, the dense, heavy world they painstakingly constructed, using decades of chronic anxiety, begins to aggressively strike back. You must deeply comprehend that the three-dimensional physical environment you are navigating right now is essentially a severely lagging broadcast. It is merely a holographic echo of the person you used to be several months ago. When you violently upgrade your internal frequency, this physical echo does not vanish instantaneously. You are still going to encounter the same overdue invoices, the identical frustrating relationship dynamics, and the exact same tired circumstances staring back at you. This lag time is precisely where the masses completely shatter. They falsely assume that because the material universe didn't magically reorganize itself overnight, their internal spiritual recalibration was a total failure. They tragically misread a standard cosmic delay as a permanent defeat. You must grasp that the universal architecture demands a mandatory incubation period to stabilize. You are simply allowing dense, physical matter the necessary time to catch up to the lightning-fast energetic collapse you have already commanded in the quantum field. If you allow yourself to suffer an emotional reaction to this expiring echo, you instantly reboot the exact nightmare timeline you just escaped. It is the precise equivalent of burying a seed in the fertile soil and then frantically digging it up every 10 minutes just to check if the roots have sprouted. The very act of checking is a loud, undeniable declaration of skepticism, and skepticism is a toxic frequency that completely obliterates unshakable certainty. To successfully anchor your upgraded reality, you are required to cultivate an extreme, almost militant form of spiritual blindness. You must possess the icy capacity to stare directly into the face of a chaotic, negative circumstance and register absolutely zero emotional response. You do this not by unhealthily suppressing your human feelings, but through the profound realization that the obstacle standing before you is nothing but a phantom. It is the decaying residue of a past identity that has already been eradicated. Once you master this intense level of emotional stability, you permanently resign as a helpless casualty of your surroundings and transform into the gravitational center that actively bends the environment to your will. You ascend to the status of the untouchable architect. The cosmic matrix eventually registers that its desperate tactics to drag you back into your old misery loops are completely failing. Once reality accepts that you are completely immune to its triggers, it has absolutely zero choice but to rebuild its entire physical structure around your new, unshakable axis of indifference. This is the ultimate point of no return. Yet, you must realize that this elevated level of awareness carries an incredibly steep toll. The absolute death of your comfortable victimhood. When you govern your life via the doctrine of radical detachment, your right to complain is permanently revoked. You can never again point the finger at your parents, the global economy, or your cosmic misfortune. You awaken to the terrifying truth that every microscopic detail of your earthly experience was explicitly chosen by your own conscious observation. For the average human, this magnitude of absolute accountability is utterly paralyzing. They vastly prefer to rot in their daily struggle because their suffering provides a highly convenient scapegoat. It grants them a tragic, sympathetic narrative to broadcast to the world. But you are officially transcending petty narratives. You are stepping behind the curtain into the raw, mechanical gears of infinite potential. Consequently, if you are currently enduring scarcity or friction, it is simply because a hidden fraction of your psyche still extracts a twisted benefit from that lack. Perhaps it provides a brilliant excuse to hide from your true, terrifying potential. Or maybe it serves as the social glue keeping you bonded to a circle of fellow sufferers. To ascend, you must possess the immense courage to be the sole individual in the room who is no longer drowning. You must dare to be the anomaly. As this profound stabilization crystallizes within your mind, you will witness a bizarre distortion in the fabric of time itself. Because you have entirely deleted the concept of waiting from your operating system, the heavy burden of duration simply melts away. Monumental shifts that historically required grueling years to manifest will suddenly erupt into your reality within a matter of weeks or days. This acceleration does not occur because the planet is spinning faster. Rather, you have completely annihilated the dense resistance generated by the vibration of anticipation. You have stopped wedging an artificial gap between your current coordinates and your desired destination. You have violently crushed the distance, forcing everything into the eternal now. This is the authentic, scientific definition of a quantum leap. It is absolutely not a massive physical jump across a chasm. It is a violent shift in psychological perspective that entirely deletes the illusion of distance. Your desired reality is already here precisely because you ceased commanding the universe to keep it over there. This marks the flawless fusion of the observer and the object being observed. However, it is vital that you do not confuse this masterful state with lazy, passive daydreaming. Physical action will absolutely still be required, but it will morph into divinely inspired movement. There is a massive, structural difference between the frantic scrambling of a desperate hustler and the fluid momentum of an aligned master. Hustle culture is a pathetic attempt to bully the universe into surrendering something you internally believe you lack. True aligned movement, conversely, is the organic, effortless overflow of a spirit that already feels utterly complete. When you take action born from a place of radical apathy toward the outcome, you are never trying to extract anything from the world. You are merely sliding down the path of least energetic resistance. You make your moves because each step feels like the next undeniable, perfect chord in a masterpiece you are already composing. Within this flow state, friction ceases to exist, burnout becomes a myth, and the paralyzing terror of failure evaporates entirely. If a specific action fails to instantly yield the expected fruit, you remain a fortress of indifference. You possess the inner knowing that the grand trajectory is securely locked into the universal GPS, so the microscopic, daily missteps hold absolutely zero power to disturb your peace. This icy detachment transforms you into an incredibly lethal force within a society populated by terrified individuals who are utterly paralyzed by the fear of making a wrong turn. You execute your maneuvers with an alien precision that the masses cannot even begin to comprehend. All because you have entirely divorced yourself from the desperate need for external validation. You are simply enjoying the spectacular cinematic display of your own conscious selections. We must now confront the ultimate deception, the fantasy of regression. Now that the veil has been permanently lifted and you possess the mechanical blueprints of reality, you carry the eternal burden of accountability. You cannot artificially induce amnesia. You might attempt to masquerade as a helpless pawn, again absorbing toxic news cycles, whining about your circumstances, and desperately holding out for a savior to rescue you, but the charade will completely fail. Deep within the recesses of your consciousness, an icy, detached sentinel will constantly remind you of your own hypocrisy. You have sampled the intoxicating sovereignty of the quantum matrix, and the chaotic static of your former, lower-dimensional existence will never satisfy you again. This is the heavy tax of enlightenment. You are now actively navigating a cosmic simulation, while the rest of humanity remains comatose. You are the sole lucid dreamer, wandering through a crowded asylum of sleepwalkers. As we draw the curtain on this profound intersection, violently resist the urge to flee, that desperate itch to swipe to another piece of digital media or rush to your next mundane chore is merely your fragile ego attempting to escape the crushing gravity of this realization. Linger inside this silent vacuum for just a few more heartbeats. Absorb the immense density of your newly awakened state. You are currently positioned at the absolute epicenter of your personal cosmos, and the Matrix is holding its breath for your definitive command. It is not waiting for a fleeting thought or a pathetic wish. It demands an absolute, unwavering selection. What expired belief are you finally going to strip of its power? Which deep-seated scarcity are you preparing to annihilate with radical apathy? This monumental verdict is not calculated in your frontal lobe. It is forged in the deepest pit of your stomach. The exact microsecond you scream enough to the endless grind and wholeheartedly embrace the empty void is the exact microsecond your new timeline becomes permanently cemented into physical law. You have been handed the master keys. The hidden architecture has been exposed. Yet, engrave this truth into your mind. The universe does not hand out trophies for mere intellectual understanding. It strictly yields to your state of embodiment. Raw data is nothing but dormant, unexpressed energy. True metamorphosis requires the ruthless, kinetic execution of that data. Should you walk away from this broadcast and resume your identical reactive behavioral loops, then this profound transmission was nothing more than cheap digital theater, and the cosmos will treat your life accordingly. However, if you wield this weapon of radical detachment like a finely sharpened blade, slicing mercilessly through the chaotic illusions of your daily routines, you will witness the fabric of your reality violently fracture and reconstruct itself. The incoming paradigm will make your grandest, most ambitious former dreams look pitifully small and painfully uninspired. The universe has never been actively hiding its treasures from you. It has simply been waiting out the clock, praying for you to retire from your exhausting career as a beggar so it could finally crown you as the master. Freeze right now. Audit your internal bandwidth. You are fundamentally not the exact same entity that initiated this sequence minutes ago. The molecular shift has already been executed, regardless of whether your conscious mind has caught up to the transition. The ultimate selection is locked in. Your final mandate is to physically ground this high-frequency alignment into the three-dimensional dirt. Do not let your analytical brain sabotage this. Do not agonize over the hidden mechanisms. Before you shatter the silence and invite the chaotic noise back into your sanctuary, complete one final directive to permanently weld this new trajectory into place. From what exact geographic coordinate on this planet is this vibration penetrating your consciousness right now? Engrave your physical location into the comment section below. Do not do this to appease a robotic algorithm. Do this as a solemn decree for your own spiritual record. Hammer a permanent stake into the ground to mark the precise coordinates where the exhausted, chasing version of you perished, and the commanding, sovereign version of you was birthed. The quantum matrix has already selected you. Now, you must actively choose the matrix. This specific transmission has concluded, but your legendary ascent has just been initiated. Move accordingly.